Yeah, I gotta do TPM on that.
I was asking, which video was it that you guys went through? Was it the one with just him or both of us?
With just Dr.
Okay.
A.
Okay. That way I know. Okay. What have you heard?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
good.
think the biggest thing is all the paradigm shifts. At least for
Sure.
me, when I learned that pain was my friend, that was a huge, huge shift for me.
Hmm.
So anything you can share on that?
And we'll throw out some stuff and just let me say this: the training is indeed for free in a sense, in that everything that's on the website. Matter of fact, everything we're going to say today will probably be contained in the book that you can purchase this if you want to, or you can get it free online as well and just do a digital copy. We just simply give away what we have, and we say thank you to those who contribute. But the ministry is supported by people that God has just personally touched and has raised up, and that's how we get things done. And so even today, us sitting here with you all, somebody's gift made it possible for us to take this time to do this. And so that's how that works. But I'm encouraged to hear you say that you want to make this a lifestyle, because that's typically the biggest hurdle that churches or groups have to get over, is that when they approach TPM, they come with the assumption is that, oh, I'm going to be trained to go out and help the emotionally wounded or the emotionally troubled person. So I'm going to go become equipped to be a facilitator of this ministry. And that's just not that's not what this ministry is about at all. And so to hear you say we want to make this a lifestyle, good. We're getting past that hurdle, because if you that are in the room today came thinking, oh great, I'm going to be trained and equipped to go out and help the emotionally wounded people, well, we got to slow that down and look back a little bit and say, who are the emotionally wounded people you're talking about? If everyone in the room would right now just raise your right hand and look around the room, that's who we're talking about. Okay, that's the group we're talking. But you're not emotionally wounded.
Right.
See, that's another mistaken concept, is that somehow I'm emotionally damaged, or I'm emotionally wounded, or my past has crippled me. All those concepts are just false. That's just not the truth. There are no emotionally wounded people in this world. Now, there are a lot of people who struggle with the feelings they don't want to have. I get that. I mean, it wasn't but a few weeks ago, I reached over and grabbed a hold of the hot skillet, not knowing it was hot, and I immediately put it back down again. I did not like the feeling that was in my hand. I didn't like it at all. But I'm glad I felt that pain.
Right.
Because had I not felt that pain, I would have continued to hold that hot skillet and maybe blistered my hand.
Right. Until you smelt something.
Until I smelled flesh burning and thought it was bacon. Yeah, it was Ed bacon. But pain is not bad. Pain is good. It just feels bad. But that's good that it feels bad, because that's by God's design. He designed the nerves in my hand to send a signal to my brain to say, whatever you got a hold of, let go of. Mm-hmm. If I step on a thorn and my bottom of my foot hurts, that's good, but it feels bad. Well, there are no emotionally wounded people in the world. They're just people who feel bad, but they feel bad because of what they believe. Emotion comes from belief. It comes from what I believe to be the truth in my heart. Now, the problem is, not everything I believe in my heart is the truth. There's a large portion of what I believe is true that's not true. In particular, what I believe about who I am and what I believe about who God is. Those are the two categories in which my lie-based heart beliefs are contained. And when I touch one of those beliefs about who I am or who God is, I will feel emotion that matches that belief. But I won't like that emotion. I don't like feeling depressed. I don't like feeling worried or concerned or anxious or fearful or doubting or dreadful or all those. I hate those emotions. I don't like them. But all of those emotions are like my hand on the skillet or the thorn in my foot. They're telling me, Ed, you believe something that's not true. Mm-hmm. Because when I believe the truth in my heart, I will feel what the truth feels like. And there's where the love, joy, peace, contentment, satisfaction, all those good, positive emotions flow from the truth that I believe in my heart. Anxiety, worry, fear, they flow from the lies I believe in my heart. And I've had people who push back on that and say, no, Ed, it's just normal to feel that way. Anyone would feel that way. And I go, you know what? That's normally what we feel. And most everyone feels, well, I would say everyone feels that way from time to time. We feel whatever we believe, but not everything we believe is the truth. So anyway, getting back where we started there, I'm glad to hear that your focus is starting out with, we're here to learn how to walk in a process, a concept, a frame of reference by which we can intentionally, purposefully choose to cooperate with God, with what He's doing in our lives to refine our belief, purify our belief, and thereby renewing our minds. And as the outcome of that is transformation, or our behavior and emotions being transformed into the image of Christ. You want to add to that? That was just kind of my...
Sure. Yeah, kind of tying back to Sharon, what you were saying is the importance of understanding that emotions are not your enemy, they're your friend. Now, they are, and even in the text, and you've heard us say this before, they may not be friends we enjoy,
Yeah.
but they're honest friends. And you've heard it said you can't trust your emotions, but we would argue you can trust your emotions to tell you something very specific. You cannot trust them ever as an indication of what is true, but you can always trust them to tell you what you believe to be true.
Yes.
And so that's the important distinction, and that's where it can be profitable for us, it can be beneficial for us, is when we rightly understand and can handle and respond to what we're feeling. If I feel anxious, that doesn't mean that I'm in an anxious environment. It just means that I believe something that's causing me to feel anxious.
Yeah.
If I feel alone, that doesn't mean that I'm alone. It just means that I believe that I'm alone. There's the difference. Just because I feel as though God is distant doesn't mean that He is. It just means that I believe that He's distant. It doesn't change the fact. It doesn't change the reality. And that's the importance of knowing the truth. When I know the truth in my heart, now my feelings reflect reality. That's where we want to get to. Because He is the truth. When we know the truth, when we know Him as He is, we will feel what you should feel in response to His presence. Okay, but we usually get the cart before the horse and try to feel what we should be feeling or behave the way we should be behaving, even though we don't really believe that to be true.
Yeah.
And that's where you have the struggle. It's like trying to make yourself not feel anxious when you feel anxious, or trying to make yourself feel joyful when you don't feel joy. We're trying to go about it the wrong way. We're focused on the outcome of our belief and trying to change it rather than addressing the source of our emotion. You know, if we can address the reasons for why I feel afraid, the reasons for why I feel alone, the rest will take care of itself. If I know the truth that He is with me always, even to the end of the age, then I won't feel alone. And I won't have to try to feel His presence. I'll feel His presence. In the same way that if I believe that I'm alone, I don't have to try to feel alone. I just feel alone. I'm trying to get out of that. And so we put our effort in the wrong spot. We'll say elsewhere in the text, the whole idea of discipline. It's related to all of this. It's not that there's no discipline in the Christian walk. There is. We've just put it in the wrong spot. Right. We refer to it as misplaced discipline. We're trying hard in all the wrong areas. We're trying to change the outcome, the natural expected outcome of our faith, rather than addressing why it's all jacked up out here to begin with. You know, if we can focus on knowing the truth in our heart, and we have principles that are important there, the rest takes care of itself. When I know the truth, like what Dad said, I feel what the truth feels like, which translates into I end up doing what I wanted to do to begin with. You know, the thing I was struggling against is no longer an issue for me. I'm no longer pulled aside and drawn in all these terrible directions. I can just effortlessly do what my true heart was wanting to do. I'm effortlessly behaving the way that Jesus would in my place. That's what you want. You want to see what we refer to as effortless fruit bearing. You know, it's the me feeling and perceiving things and doing exactly what Jesus would be doing in my place, without me putting in all the effort. It's just there. It's fruit. It's His fruit.
I have people ask me, what is Transformation Prayer Ministry? What is it you're focused on? What are you trying to accomplish? And if I can boil it down to its most basic essence, it's simply bearing the fruit of the Holy Spirit. most of my Christian life, I approached the fruit list in Galatians as a to-do list. I need to be more loving, more peaceful, more this, more that. I need to work on my patience. I need to be more self-controlled. And then, as Joshua was saying, I would then try to discipline myself to do the very things that I also was saying that was the fruit of the Holy Spirit. I've got a little, I'm going to call it an orchard. It's about 7 trees. But
3 of which produce fruit.
3, right, and the other ones, they're not doing so well.
They're decorative.
But pretty soon, as the weather changes and as the leaves come off of the trees, I'll go out there and start pruning back those trees. Now, what I'm going to look for on that tree are the limbs that I know didn't bear fruit. And it's not that hard to identify those limbs. Primarily, well, let me say it this way. There are some branches that grow directly from the trunk. Those I never cut off. Those are the ones that are abiding in the trunk. But each one of those branches have branches that come off of it. And especially the horizontal branches. Oh, they're looking good. They're standing out there, and they're the ones that are making the tree taller and all this kind of good stuff. But they don't bear fruit. And I go out and I cut them off. Now, I think when Jesus said, he said, any branch that abides in me that doesn't bear fruit, I cut off. I don't think he was saying, I'm going to lop it off right at the joint where it joins with the trunk. That would make no sense at all. That would ruin your tree. Now all you got is a trunk and you don't have any fruit at all. He was saying there are branches that abide in me that are not producing fruit, but it's not the part that's abiding in me. It's those horizontal branches that are coming off that need to be cut off. And God wants to cut those off because they're not bearing fruit. And fruit is not something that I had to put, that my tree is putting effort in. I've never gone out there one time and heard my trees groaning and struggling and trying to produce fruit. They are tied into the trunk. The source of energy or whatever coming from that trunk goes into those branches, and the branches that are positioned right will bear fruit. Those horizontal branches, they don't do, and they're just a bunch of leaves. They get cut off. But it doesn't require effort to produce fruit. If I'm trying to be patient, if I'm struggling to be kind, or if I'm trying to discipline myself to be self-controlled, any fruit that comes from that is not a fruit of the Spirit, but actually a fruit of my own flesh, a fruit of my own effort. And God looks at that and goes, no, won't work. And in the end, and when it's all said and done, they will be burned up with fire. But, as Paul said, but yet he will still be saved. So he's not cutting us off. He's cutting off the branches that don't produce fruit. But anyway, TPM, the essence of TPM, is me learning how to discipline myself, to position myself so that God might bring forth fruit in my life. I do that in several ways. One in particular is I take ownership for what I'm producing. I take ownership for my emotions. You see, if I feel worried or stressed or angry or whatever I may feel, nothing out there around me, no one, no devil, no life experience is causing me to feel anything that I feel. I feel what I believe, and everything I believe is my belief. Now, someone else may have infused that belief into me. Satan himself may have convinced me as a little boy to believe I'm worthless and no good. Or maybe I had a parent that slapped me around and told me, you worthless piece of trash, you're never going to amount to anything. And I embraced that and believed that. The source of the lie may have come from someplace else, but the moment I embraced it, it became my belief. Now it's mine. I own it. I can't blame anybody else for it because I'm the one that's holding on to it. Now, I could theoretically say, yeah, but it's because my dad said so and so. Well, that's true. That was the context. But the moment I put my heart's hands around it, it became my belief. And then any emotion that belief produces is my emotions. And any behavior that is an outcome of what I believe, what I feel, is also mine. And so the first discipline I want to apply is to say, I feel what I believe, and I'm doing what I believe, and I am responsible for everything coming out of me. Now, that's the first step. That takes discipline because you know what? It's a whole lot easier to go, you make me so mad. You did that. Now I feel this way. You're the reason why my life, I do that. I stay stuck in a cycle of repetitive defeat. I can't get out of that cycle.
Right. And we've all seen that. I mean, we've all been either we do that, or we've been part of groups where that's dynamic is
Right.
at full effect.
Right.
We go around the table sharing, how our spiritual journey is going. But 9 times out of 10, it's all about how I'm not doing enough, or
Right.
I didn't do what I should have done, or I keep doing this thing that I shouldn't have done. And the solution is always try harder, recommit, get some more outside influence, in the form of accountability or whatever. But what if we've, again, gone about it the completely wrong way? We're trying to change the outcome by focusing on the outcome rather than the source.
Yeah.
If we can focus on the reasons for why we've got all this struggle going on, if we can focus on the reasons for why the branch isn't bearing fruit, then the branch will bear fruit.
Yeah.
But you can't just focus on the branch that's not bearing fruit and just get it to start bearing fruit. That's not how it works.
Well, like what you said a while ago about just praising God when you don't feel like praising,
Right.
or trying to rejoice when you don't feel joy, that's a total misunderstanding of fruit bearing.
Mm-hmm.
To the degree that I'm having to discipline myself to feel love, joy, peace, or to be patient, kind, good, gentle, faithful, or self-control, to the degree that I'm having to put effort into that, reveals that that I'm not operating on the truth, but I'm operating on my own truth, my own lie-based belief, and that's why it's requiring effort. Because if I have to try to make myself rejoice, I need to ask the question, why am I not feeling joyful?
Right.
Where is the joy? Well,
automatically, naturally.
And people go, well, you just got to choose to do it. You just got to praise the Lord anyway. Well, that's just a denial of the fact is that, no, I feel what I believe, and I'm responsible for what I believe. Now, someone else may have put it in my head initially, but I accepted it and I embraced it. Now, bring some grace to that, to say that little boy back there, he did the best he could do. He did the only thing he knew to do, and that was just to believe the lie. I get it, but you're not there anymore. Today, you're where you are, and today is where we say, okay, that happened back there, but today I'm believing what I'm believing because it's my belief. Now here's a difficult part of it. And this is the path that a lot of people take. They go, okay, I recognize I'm believing a lie. I was told I'm worthless and no good, and I see that I chose to accept that, and I believe that, and I can see that I'm holding on to it today. So therefore, I'm going to discipline myself to choose to believe different. Sorry, won't work. Once you believe something, you can't just decide to believe something else. And you're going to learn that in the training when you get into an area. We talk about the trust and authority principle. Is that you can't just decide one day, I'm going to believe differently. I recall back in the early years of TPM, when I still had my counseling practice. I had a group of women that were all survivors of sexual abuse as children, and they were dealing with the aftermath of that in their present life. And I remember trying so hard, this is before TPM, trying so hard to convince them that you're not dirty and shameful. It wasn't your fault. You're safe now. You're not there anymore. And I told them the truth. I told them the truth. And they tried the best they could to believe what the Bible said about them and to deny what they were feeling. And after doing this over and over and over, month after month after month, I could ask them, okay, now Mary, when you look at that memory, what do you see? Well, I see my uncle doing this and this and that. Now, how does that make you feel? I feel dirty. I feel shameful. I feel trapped. I feel like I'm going to die, out of control. I said, but Mary, what is the truth today? And she could tell me, Ed, I'm not there anymore. I'm safe now. It wasn't my fault. He's dirty and shameful. I'm not. Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, great. Now let's look at that memory again and just focus on it. What do you feel? Well, Ed, I know it's not true, but I feel trapped. I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like I'm dirty and I'm shameful. And they might start crying and weeping. I'm going like, what's the deal? It's because they couldn't change what they believed in their heart. But that was the birthing of this ministry. Was that day I was working with the lady and I didn't know what else to do. And she's telling me I'm dirty, I'm shameful, I'm trapped, I can't get away, and all this. And she's laying over on the couch and she's crying. And I just said out loud, I said, I don't know, Mary. I said, Jesus, is there something you wanted to know? I honestly didn't have any expectation. I mean, it wasn't some spiritual thing that, at least knowingly, that I was doing. And I said, Lord, what do you want her to know? And all of a sudden she stopped crying and she sat up and she said, it's gone. I said, what's gone? And she said, I just felt all that stuff just lifted off from me. I don't feel shameful. I don't feel panicky anymore. I go, well, why? What's going on? She goes, He said, it wasn't my fault. He said, I'm not there anymore. And in that moment, a light came on for me is that, okay, I just saw that woman experience something I couldn't bring about. I told her the exact same things that she said that the Lord just told her.
Many times.
Many, many times, over and over again. And yet, she heard him, but she couldn't hear me. And that's because he speaks to the heart. I speak to the mind.
And he speaks with a different level of authority than we do.
Right. And so when I said those words, Jesus, what do you want her to know? He said, okay, step out of the way, Ed. Here, I can take care of this. Mary, you're not there anymore. You're safe now. It wasn't your fault. And all of a sudden, she's countenance changed. She feels peace and calm. She doesn't feel trapped anymore. She doesn't feel dirty and shameful. Why? Because she believed with their heart. Now you go to Ephesians chapter 1, verse about 18, I think it is, where Paul says, I pray that the eyes of your heart might be opened or enlightened so that you might know what is the hope of your calling. That's exactly what I saw happen in that moment. God opened the eyes of her heart, and she saw, from his perspective, the truth. Mm-hmm. Well, this is what we want to see accomplished in a training of TPM, is not to develop people who can help the emotionally wounded, but people who can understand how to apply this and to walk in this. And then, if they have people around them that are interested, they can draw them in and help them to understand how to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's where we have the mentor-mentee concept. But it's not about me help you get through your crisis or me help you to do this or that. It's me to help you to be equipped to walk in this process, to walk in understand these concepts.
Right. It's about modeling what we're talking about to other people, so that you can explain not just with your words, but also your own life, and saying, when I find myself in this situation in which I'm reading a Bible verse for the 1,000th time and realize it just doesn't feel true to me, it doesn't seem to match my circumstance, this is what I do in response. Or if somebody cuts me off in traffic and I feel myself all reared up, this is what I do in response. Or if the job, I get overlooked for the job and the guy next to me who did not deserve it, he gets it, this is what I do in response.
When you say this is what I do, you're talking about what?
The thing that we haven't talked about yet.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to be vague and confusing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so what the point that we're trying to shed light on is this isn't some tool that you pick up to go help the hurting. Right. This is something that you learn to recognize in your own life, because that's really the thing we're trying to drive home, is that God is already doing this in every one of your lives. There's nobody here that God is not actively using all things in your life to bring about the exposure of what you really believe in your heart.
Right.
And the reason for why he's doing that is a loving purpose. He wants you to see it. He wants you to admit it. He wants you to acknowledge the fact that you don't really trust him. Mm-hmm. You don't really believe that he's with you always. You don't really believe that he's loving. You don't really believe that you are called. You don't really believe that you are safe. He wants you to see it.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's doing, because once you see that and acknowledge the fact that you can't fix it, you can't change the fact that you feel alone. You can't change the fact that you believe you're dirty and worthless. You're stuck there. You have to invite him to fix it for you. Yeah. That's what he wants you to do. Because the moment that you do, the literal instance that you do, he will shed his light in your heart. He will convince or persuade you of the truth. And when you know the truth, like I've said before, it fixes all the rest of the stuff. Yeah. It makes it so that you feel in response to any of those situations differently. You view them from a different perspective. You're not motivated to do the same frustrating nonsense that you struggle not to do. You just effortlessly exude and express his spirit. That's what he wants, and that's what you want. It's just most of us don't know what to do. We lack the practical steps of how do we get there, because we've all heard on a weekly basis, here's what you ought to believe, here's what you ought to be doing, here's how you ought to feel, here's how you ought to view yourself and God and your situation and the world, here is your job. We get it. We've heard it a million times, but what do we do with that information? Mm-hmm. Typically what we do is, okay, I'll try harder. And logically so. What else are you supposed to do? Mm-hmm. If this is how I do feel and this is how I'm supposed to feel, I'll do my best. Or if this is what I'm doing, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing, okay, I'll try harder and recommit myself. And what else are we going to do? that's where we're trying to step in and say, well, have you tried this option? Rather than trying to feel the right thing, or rather than trying to do the right thing or have the right perspective, let's acknowledge the fact, the reality that we don't. Yeah. We don't feel what the truth feels like. We're not viewing our lives or our situations through the lens of truth. Let's acknowledge it. And when we do, let's then invite the counselor to persuade us of the truth. Let's invite his Spirit to convince us, to lead us into all truth. Just like Jesus said he was sending his Spirit to do. When we do that, the outcome is, now I know the truth. Mm-hmm. So it's a different way of getting the very thing we want. So rather than saying, I believe a lie, I want to believe the truth, rather than going, I'm going to try to believe the truth, no. Lord, I believe this lie. What do you want me to know? He then convinces me of it. And now I have the very thing I wanted.
Well, let me, in fairness to the weekly message we say we may hear, typically that message is, here's what you're supposed to do, and here's what you're supposed to feel. Now go and do it. But there's also the tag that's added to it, and trust God to bring it about.
To perform it.
Okay, okay. Now, and I get that sounds good, but God's going, no, I don't want to help you.
Right.
And I don't need your help here.
Right.
Let me back up. I don't need your help in this. I need you to take ownership for what's there. In the same way you got saved, as Peter said, I want you to walk in that same grace and faith.
God doesn't want to empower you to produce joy.
Right. No.
He wants to produce joy in your life.
Right. And to the degree that I believe the truth in my heart, my emotions will reflect that naturally and effortlessly. Mm-hmm. Now let me say this about taking this to the church. Here's where it has not gone well, and that is when it's presented to the church as, we want to equip people to help those in crisis, help those who are troubled, help those. We want to equip people. And at that point, you have about a 99% drop off, because most of the people in the church going, well, that's not my calling. Now, if we approach it from TPM is for the purpose of making you feel better, a pain management type of a thing, you'll get some people who will come for that until their pain level reaches a point that it's manageable, and then they're gone.
Right.
And so we've got to approach the church with this from the perspective of, this is a means by which we can learn to participate, cooperate with God in what he's doing in refining our faith. Now, the idea of refining is the biblical analogy is, of course, the melting of raw gold, putting it in a vat, heating it up, and whatever is not gold, the impurities will then rise to the top so the smelter can drag it off until you have a refined vat of gold. That's the analogy. Well, that's what God is doing, is that as life happens, when the fire comes, when the pressure is increased, whatever we believe will come to the surface. Now, if I believe the truth, it will be made manifest, and it will prove the authenticity of my faith. If I believe lies, those lies will come to the surface through my emotions and through my behavior. And it's very obvious when the lies are there, because those lies won't look like what Jesus would have done. But God uses the refining of life, the fire of life, to bring to the surface that which I believe that's contrary to the truth. And what he wants us to do right there is not go try to scrape it off ourselves, or try to do better, or I'm just going to choose to praise the Lord anyway. I'm going to muster up joy. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in worship service where the leader would say, okay, folks, let's just rejoice in the Lord. And so people start making a joyful sound, which is good. Do that all you want to. But if joy is not there, we've got to ask the question, why not? Where is the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control? Where is that when it's supposed to be there, when it's supposed to be the fruit of the Holy Spirit? The reason it's not there is because we believe something contrary that's keeping us from experiencing that. That's what the refiner's fire is about. He heats up, life comes into our situation. We don't like it. We don't like it when we lose our job, or the car breaks down, or whatever. We don't like life experiences that are troublesome. But that's the refiner's fire. Mm-hmm. Peter said it in chapter 1 Peter chapter 4, I think 12, 13, somewhere. And I'm just going from memory here. He says, don't be surprised or caught off guard by the fiery ordeal that's come upon you, as though some strange thing were happening to you, but rather to the degree that you share in Christ's sufferings, keep on rejoicing. Why? Because at the revelation of Christ in you, you will rejoice with an exaltation. there's the principle. Is that life happens? We don't like it. It's troublesome. It's it's like Job. He didn't like the fact that all of his crops got destroyed and his children were killed by the wind. He hated all that, but in the midst of that, he said, "I will come out as gold refined by fire." That's God's desire for us. Yeah, we hate it, but you know what? Whatever we believe will be made manifest in the fire. But it's made manifest so that we can hold it up to him and say, God, here's what you've exposed in me. Now I want your perspective. Right. And that's what we learn in TPM, is how to position ourselves so that we might receive his perspective. Not how we might do something different or try harder or try to believe or try to change our belief. All of that just won't work.
And hopefully you're hearing a similar thread to what we were talking about with the emotion even. What we're trying, in its most basic form, what we're trying to get people to see is, yeah, we don't like the fact that we feel negative emotions, but that too is for your good. There is an important purpose tied into that. It's not random. God designed it that way for a good and loving and purposeful reason. Well, in the same way, we don't like it when the refiner's fire is turned up, when it gets hot, when our lives get chaotic, when the pressure is applied. We don't like it. But that too is for your good. It's also being used, like everything else, to accomplish a good purpose. And so that really is the first step, is to recognize God's hand and his purpose and his intention in all of it, even before we start talking about what we should do in response. Let's first look at it properly. Let's look at it from the right perspective, because when the heat is applied and the gold melts and all the junk comes to the surface, typically what we do is we look at that as a negative. It's a bad thing. When I get in that situation and my stressful job kicks in and I'm under the pressure and all this, I lash out and I end up doing stupid things, or I say things that I shouldn't have said, and I feel things that don't reflect the spirit and nature of God. We look at that as a failure. We look at that as, that's a bad thing. No, it's not. Yeah. It's a good thing. Just like when you touch, the hot skillet, it hurts. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's no fun, but it's a good thing. Yeah. It's no fun when you say things you didn't mean to say or do things you really wouldn't have done if you were thinking clearly. But isn't it a good thing? Because now you have indication of what you really believe. Mm-hmm. Before that event, you thought you knew the truth, but apparently, out you spit all this nonsense. Don't look at that as though it's a failure, it's a bad thing, and I need to try harder next time. No. Recognize it as an indication that you lack his perspective. You've not yet been convinced in your heart of the truth. And then you can respond to it properly by saying, okay, I've just been exposed. The impurities in my faith have just risen to the surface. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to run from it or try to change it. I'm just going to own it and say, Lord, finish the job. You've exposed what needs to be exposed. Now remove it by convincing me of the truth. At that point, now I'm responding to my life situation and God's orchestration of it in a profitable way. And I'm responding to the discipline in a fruitful manner. I'm learning from it. My beliefs are changing. I'm not just hitting a bump and then trying harder and hitting a bump and then trying harder. I'm hitting a bump and going, whoa, what are you trying to do here? Yeah. Teach me what you're wanting to show me. Because every one of those instances in which we get exposed, the lies we believe or our lack of faith is exposed, flip it on its head. What that is an opportunity to come into a truth that you don't yet believe, not at a heart level. And so, is that a bad thing or a good thing? It's an opportunity, and that's what we refer to it as. There are opportunities to have our faith refined, to have our minds renewed, to have us experience genuine transformation that results in us bearing his fruit without trying at all. Mm-hmm. And so that way, next time, the one that would have gotten your goat, the one that would have resulted in you acting the same way you did before, suddenly you don't act that way. Mm-hmm. And you're not trying to do better. You just realize, you know what? I didn't mouth off at that guy. Yeah. I didn't roll down my window and start sign language. It just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even try to stop it. It just never showed up. Yeah. Well, that's fruit bearing. Yeah. The other stuff of going, no, keep your hands on the wheel. Just don't look at them. That's not fruit. Mm-hmm. That's just discipline. That's what everybody on the planet does. Yeah. But those who know the truth in their heart just exude his spirit without even trying.
In this book here, which you can download for free on the website, in chapter 1, it gives a good introduction to what is Transformation Prayer Ministry. So you can do that. That'll kind of reinforce your beginning.
And that's also a free download transformationprayer.org.
Right. And then let me say this. This is a big old thick book. And you look at it and go, oh, this is going to take a long time to get through. And you know what? You're right. It is. But here's the deal. We're not training you, equipping you to go out and help the emotionally wounded. We're equipping you for a life's journey. And so you've got your lifetime to learn it. Just be diligent. Hang in there. Don't look at this training you're starting out as something you're going to start and then complete.
Right.
You're not going to complete your training. You're going to dive into it, and it's going to be for the rest of your life. You're going to learn. You're going to grow. You're going to keep adding to.
And so, I mean, nobody sits down in front of their TV and picks a new show to watch and go, "Oh, that one has too many seasons. I'm not going to watch it." Like, it's not why you're sitting there.
Right.
Is what I'm about to watch worth my time? And if so, watch it. Same way here. Don't look at it and go, it's just too much. I'm not even going to start. Well, no. Jump in there, see if it's worth your time, and if so, keep going.
Yeah, we have a Chinese restaurant here in town that I like that my family hates. But anyway, I like it. It's a buffet. When you walk in there, it's like miles and miles of all this Chinese food. It's got
that's been sitting there for weeks.
No, and it's even got frog legs. I mean, I don't know if you've ever eaten frog. I love frog legs. But anyway, I don't walk in there and go, oh my, that's way too much food.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go someplace else and eat. No, I just keep coming back over and over again. And every time I go back, it's the same amount of food. But that doesn't deter me.
Right.
So don't approach this as a buffet that you have to consume in one setting. You're going to take your time. You're going to learn it. And you're going to make it your life journey, how you walk, how you live. And I'm pretty confident that if you'll do that, you're going to have good results.
And that's if I can just put a ribbon on it.
Okay.
That's what we want you to approach it with. Not with the mentality, again, of I'm picking up a tool to help the messed up people around me.
Yeah.
We've got to shed that paradigm and get to, I want to better understand and recognize God's hand in my life so that I don't miss those opportunities. I want to respond appropriately, responsibly, so that I benefit from what He's doing in my life to the fullest extent possible. Yeah. That's what we want people to approach it with.
Right. So I just want to encourage you guys, hang in there, don't be discouraged. I hope you all will hang into the end. And I even pray even more so that your church will see this not as a ministry for the emotionally wounded
people,
but we'll see this as a discipleship program where we're learning how to walk in this process. We're learning how to view life from God's perspective, hear His voice, and be transformed by His truth. So anyway, encourage you guys in that, and it's been good to be with you. Any last words on your part before we have to go here? Go ahead, Sharon. Anything else?
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
We will, this is recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, we've recorded this, so at some point we'll put it up there on the website, and you guys can go back and look back if you want to look at this again.
And then also, just to make you aware, it tends to fall on the first... it tends to fall on the first Monday of the month, so I think this time it'll be on the 4th of November. We do more or less this just open to the public. We just do a live broadcast where it's just Q&A. We never know what we're going to be talking about. We just show up, and whoever's got questions brings them up, and we respond to them, kind of like what we've been doing. And so we encourage you to jump in there with us if you've gone in there and you at least have read some more of the book so that you have a better idea of how wrong we are. Bring that in. Bounce it off of us.
And that's the first Monday of each month.
Yeah.
So
we call it TPM Live, but you can find information on that on the website.
Yeah, and I'll talk to them about that before we're done today.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time
You're welcome.
so much.
You're welcome. God bless you all.
I got to go to a kids' soccer game now.
Awesome. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.